I'm here to tell you, don't freak out when it comes. If you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, do not freak out. Bernie Sanders, the Hillary Clinton has had her best night, and she's not going to have another good night going forward in this primary, okay? So get that out of your head, because the mainstream media wants you to think the race is much more over than it actually is over. And how did let's look at what the race is. Now, if you can see here, you need 2,383 delegates to get the nomination for the Democrats. Okay. Hillary Clinton has 1,139 delegates. Bernie Sanders has 825 delegates, right? And that's a difference of a little over 300 delegates. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound insurmountable, does it, when you put it that way? Oh, 300 delegates he needs to overcome. She's got this. But what a lot of people do is they count the superdelegates, right? So these are those, which don't count, because she had all these superdelegates in the first election she ran against Barack Obama. But then as soon as Barack Obama won most of the pledged delegates, the superdelegates switched. Okay? So the superdelegates, very unlikely, even though Howard Dean says he will, it's very unlikely that they will vote against the will of the voters, right? So if we vote for Bernie Sanders overwhelmingly and he makes up this little over 300 delegate deficit, which he's gonna, then the superdelegates will flip. Let me put it this way. Let me just put it to you this way. You know who pointed this out? Dennis Miller pointed this out to me. So you take her superdelegates. Let's say you take those superdelegates and you put them over here. Guess who's in the lead? Bernie fucking Sanders would be. Right. If you take those superdelegates and you put him over there, he'd be way in the lead. But they're not. They're putting him over there because the establishment is jamming her down your throats. By the way, under 30 voters in the Democratic primary, 7-1 go for Bernie Sanders. But here's how the mainstream media is reporting this. So I'm watching PBS. Everybody thinks PBS is liberal. They are not. They are, again, they play the media game of access journalism. They don't want to piss off everybody, and they give the appearance of neutrality instead of the appearance of objectivity. What does that mean, Jimmy? Mainstream news media somewhere in the recent history replaced objectivity. It used to be that journalists said, I'm objective, meaning I don't bring my biases to a situation and I tell you objectively what's happening. They don't do that anymore. They bring neutrality, meaning whatever's happening, I don't put a value judgment on. I don't objectively tell you if it's good or bad. I don't objectively tell you what it even means. I just report what's happening back to you, and I don't frame it correctly. I don't give you the information you need to make the right judgments. So that's the big difference between what journalism used to do and what they're doing now. They are replacing objectivity with neutrality. Now everybody's opinion is the same, and they don't know if Trump is a racist or not. They're not. They'll ask Bernie, is he a racist? Chuck Todd asked Bernie, when you say he's a pathological liar, what do you mean by that? That's what Chuck Todd said. What do you mean? The last guy in America who doesn't know what a pathological liar is happens to be our number one political news reporter. So here's how PBS is reporting it. Here's how PBS reported the delegate count. Ready? Listen to what they do. They just add in, here we go.
The contest, including still uncalled Missouri, brought her delegate total to 1,606, more than 2/3 of what's needed for the Democratic nomination.
Okay, it didn't bring her total to 1,606. It didn't do that. They're adding in the superdelegates, which don't count. Don't listen to them when they do that. And Hillary's blowout victory last Tuesday, she gained about an extra 100 delegates. That's what she picked up. You need 2,383 delegates to win. She picked up an extra 100 over Bernie last Tuesday. Do not listen to the mainstream news media when they tell you this stuff. They're adding in the superdelegates, and they don't even tell you that they're adding in the superdelegates. That would be the one thing. If you add the superdelegates in and then you tell people you're adding them, it's another thing to just add them in and not frickin' tell people or explain it to them. So this is not objective. This isn't even neutral. This is slanted towards the establishment candidate. This is repeating the bullshit that's said inside the Beltway bubble. And believe me, the people at PBS NewsHour are inside the bubble.
Can you explain to me what superdelegate? I still don't understand what superdelegates.
So what happened was McGovern in 1972 was a big progressive anti-war guy. He ran, got wiped out. He run the primary for the Democrats, got wiped out by Nixon. I think up until that point, it was the biggest political ass kicking in history. Up till that point, I think he only won his home state. Correct. Which
Until Mondale lost to Reagan,
and so he got his ass kicked. So they decided, hey, we got to take away some of the voting power of the base, right? So we got to have the establishment have some more control over who our nominee is. So that's when they invented these super delegates. They started screwing around with the primary schedule. So that's why. By the way, all the Confederate states for Hillary, they're over. There's no more Confederate states to vote. It's all the states where Bernie does really, really well.
It's basically like having extra points at the end of a basketball game that you just add to the score.
You just add it to them
once the final buzzer buzzes.
Well, what it's meant to be is like the House of Lords over the House of Commons, or the Senate over the House. Like it's supposed to be a stopgap measure to stop a purely populist candidate.
Right.
From ending up in right.
Yeah. It's supposed to. So, although it didn't stop Walter Mondale, who also got his ass kicked.
Right. I mean,
he got his ass kicked pretty hard. So don't listen to the hype. Don't listen to. Let me see if they say anything else.
That puts her far ahead of Bernie Sanders, who has 851.
That puts her far ahead of Bernie Sanders, who has. It doesn't. It puts her about roughly a little over 300 delegates ahead of Bernie Sanders. They're counting the super delegates. This is PBS. And you wonder why people get their news from YouTube.